Start recording. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Fringe Encounter. Wait, I didn't clarify. Does Reverend work? Is that a thing? Deacon? Any of that?
No, none of those titles. I went to
Shrink?
seminary, but not a pastor. Yeah,
Shrink?
you could say shrink, I guess.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am with the Thunder Bay Shrink, whose psychological prowess allowed him to reel in and land the Thunder Bay Diva, when the Fringe encounter with me aired, some guy in the chat was named Eamon and was like, hey, I want to talk to you. And I thought that guy was this guy, but that chat never manifested. This one has. Amen. Hey, man. Welcome. Welcome to the Fringe encounter. I would normally say the Metanoia Marina and the Fringe Nexus Cafe, but I ended up having the AI robot slaves make this fancy background for Thunder Bay Reverend. So you have to get sworn in after this episode. But welcome nonetheless. Oh, let me give the folks the savings throws. I don't know if you're aware of that part. It's an occult ritual, but
I,
since you're just a shrink, I'm sure you're fine with it. It's you get to choose survival, social, wisdom, or heart, and if it's over 10, you get half damage from the mind control of this guy and me for the rest of the
all
episode.
right.
Choose! And for the
I,
survivalists, those who chose survival, that's a 7. If you got your bonuses, you'll be all right. Whoa, socialists with a nat 20. I wonder if that reveals something about our guest tonight, eh? Wisdom, folks, 14. There's 2 sevens worth. Heart, folks, 4 times 4, 16 worth of. You guys are going to be fine. Okay. I can get out of live stream mode because we're actually recording this on Friday the 13th in the setting Central Sun, Oklahoma here. Are you in the mythological Thunder Bay? Is that all true? Was I incorrect in
you
anything
know,
leading up to now?
so I met Catherine in Thunder Bay, but we actually live in Dryden. It's like about a 4-hour drive west of
So
Thunder Bay.
why the location and not home as the location for the big event you helped facilitate? I assume. Yeah.
Because Dryden is even smaller than Thunder Bay. Dryden's about 8,000 people,
It's
middle of
the
nowhere.
nearest
At
place
least
with a
Thunder Bay has an
stage.
airport.
Is Thunder Bay
Yes,
beautiful? Is
it,
it full of scenic beauty? Because recently, I don't know if you're aware of this, Paul Vanderklay talked to John Vervaeke, and John Vervaeke made Thunder Bay sound like a terrible place, at least terribly
oh,
cold. I don't know. So, can you
it is.
dispel those rumors, or was he being the truthful?
Well, if the worst thing you said about is that it's cold, that is very true. As far as the beauty, uh, it is it is gorgeous in the surrounding area, and there's some neighborhoods in Thunder Bay that are nice, but it's like a lot of northern Ontario towns. Its lifeblood for a long time was pulp and paper and mining, and there's certainly been a decline. So you see a lot of older
Hmm.
buildings built in like the 60s, 70s that are hideous. But you get out of town, which doesn't take very long. Thunder Bay is only like 110,000 people, something like that. It's gorgeous because it's right on Lake Superior and in the Canadian Shield. So
Good, good. I'm
lots
glad.
of rocks and hills. It's
It
very beautiful.
sounds beautiful and a great place to have a ritual, and then but as far as towns go, I'm very familiar. Everything I drive through has a dying main street. It's all
Yeah.
drying up and terrible. So, what was your role in that event? That was the first real meat space manifestation of everything we're doing in these parts.
It was my idea. Uh, I got into both Vanderclay and Jonathan Peugeot when we moved back to Northern Ontario. I was in Philadelphia for about a decade,
Did you
and
still say about
it
like
was
that while you were there?
I sure did. And it was funny. Americans say it sounds like a boot. I don't hear it that way, but
I'm
Yeah,
sorry, sorry. Go
didn't lose
ahead.
the dialect.
From Philly to Ontario. I apologize.
Well, my kids, I was a little alarmed when instead of saying water, they started saying water. Um, but that only comes out every now and then.
I think if you
But
nip the
no, I
Surreys in the bud, you'll be all right.
yeah
No more Surreys in this house, kids.
yeah. No, so yeah, I was snowed in Sioux Lookout actually, and the algorithm brought me to I think first Peugeot's videos, and then Vanderclay's, and I guess this would have been in 2019. We
Uh,
were Catherine and I were driving to Sioux Lookout, and I just said it'd be great to get these guys speaking to one another live at an event. And Catherine, she just makes stuff happen. So um, she did most of it, with the event. She was she's much more organized than I am, and she just started making stuff happen. She said it's a great idea, and I said, well, we should reach out to these guys, see if they respond, and if they don't, nothing lost. And they all responded very quickly. So yeah, it was that's sort of the I guess the origin story of it.
that is the embodiment of how I understand masculinity and femininity supposed to be working. Is like the lightning idea comes from Zeus, the masculine, and then like the manifestation comes from the feminine. Like I said it and she got it done. It's the perfect relationship, really. Look at the children. so,
Yeah, yeah, she's pretty amazing that way, I will say.
but when I saw your Twitter bio said clinical psychologist, I was terribly interested because the only therapy I get is like my episode with Sevilla. And so, what is clinical psychology, and what do you do with that?
Oh goodness, man, what a question. I mean, I stumbled into psychology. Really, I went to seminary first, mostly because I was curious about the questions of meaning, of purpose, um,
I want to
and whether or
pause.
not.
Let me pause. A
Okay, sure.
seminary is what I understand to be a
Yeah.
school where they make priests, but they apparently also do it for other Protestant folk, and sometimes people are sponsored to go. So, to which seminary did you go, and were there any financial arrangements with were you sponsored to go, or did like you pay to go for yourself, or and which seminary did you go to and why?
I went to Westminster Theological Seminary, and uh, paid for it. Although they did have a spousal scholarship, so Catherine was able to get her master's for free, which was pretty amazing. I don't think they have the spousal scholarship anymore. But the idea was, you work as a team, and if one of you is going, then you're better off if you're both getting the training. So uh, our dates for a few years there were, going to a 3 hour class in the evening when we got a babysitter for the kids. Um, but yeah, and the reason Westminster, it was because I came across some materials for counseling, and I'd never really even heard of counseling. But I was a youth pastor while I was getting my degree in business administration at Lakehead University. And as you get to know people and they open up and trust you, then you find out there's all sorts of difficulties, and I had no idea how to help them really. I tried the best I could. We actually had a suicide in our youth group as well, and that just sort of spurred me on all the more to want to get some training and just had personal questions. So
So you went
that's
to
what
a
led to seminary.
seminary for counselor training.
Yeah, they had a counseling concentration at the seminary.
Perfect, perfect. What does that institution regularly produce? Like, if I heard somebody came from there, I would expect them to be blank. Like they make priests or what? Because that's what I associate with
They
seminary
make
normally.
so pastors certainly, but also at Westminster, one of the traditions there is people getting grounded in theology first, and then just studying something completely different. So yeah, guys that they ended up in, business and marketing and finance and all sorts of other professions, but got a grounding at seminary. And the part of what drew me to the counseling program there was the fact that the profs there all had an MDiv, but one of them was a medical doctor for like 15 years, 20 years. Other one had a background in neuropsychology,
Mm.
and so the different um, ways of thinking and looking at the different disciplines. That's what drew me. And partway through my time there, knowing a few people who did that cross disciplinary training, I thought I'd really like to do that. I want to learn psychology at the highest level that I can, and try to understand it from a different lens, come at it from a different perspective.
And so that's
So
how you come out of a seminary as a clinical psychologist.
yes,
And
yeah,
what's
not a
clinical psych?
common path, but a path.
What's a clinical psychologist? What's different from what's it? Can you because like there's the different ologists and iatrists and all that. So what's a clinical? What you are and which one is it? And you know, can you differentiate for me and everybody? Me and everybody.
So a psychologist, you try to think of it in terms of historically what it's grounded in. I mean, I think that it's
We try to think of it in
basically
terms of
secular priests.
we try to think of it in
Uh,
terms of which ones can give out pills and which ones can't.
oh, Psychiatrists give out pills, and psychologists don't. Although that's changing in some states. Actually, psychiatry for a long time was actually a placeholder for we don't know what to do with this, but it turned into mostly a mental health um, profession.
Okay,
But yeah,
now
psychologists don't give medication.
okay, and now what was that part about souls? That we have that part cleared up. Go on. What was that first part you were saying about how it's about souls? I'm sorry.
Well, there's a saying that first psychology lost its soul, then it lost its mind. Um, so, psychology I see as historically being um, tied to it's sort of priestly work. Although, you have mostly atheistic people in the profession. Actually, there's a study about 10 years ago saying out of all the professions, psychologists are the least likely to go to any kind of religious service. They're the most atheistic groups. It's sort of interesting, but they're filling a need um, that pastors I think used to fill. And
There's a lot
I
the
have a
religious
lot of
lost.
mixed feelings about it.
Well, there's a lot the
Excuse me.
religious lost. There's a lot the religious lost. Like I'm looking back, there was something to do with the pasteurization of milk. Makes me think around whatever time it was that happened. But it seems to me that all the churches we used to be of mercy and all the hospitals used to be of mercy and stuff, and there was a lot more faith involved in the care, and that came from like it being the female role, and then the church took on the bride of a society. Where am I going with that?
Hmm.
I don't. Okay, I'm back. I don't, so clinical psychology, as opposed to other forms of psychology. What's the clinical mean? Like it's people who are patients in a hospital, or
It means that it's applied psychology. So you have people who are more involved in research or social psychologists that are almost kind of like sociologists in a way, and how they function. You have different subdisciplines of like school psychologists who are interested in learning and facilitating you know, education being more effective. You have neuropsychologists who are really they're doing something very different than most psychologists in that they're looking at the process of cognition, and they tend to work more in hospital settings. So there's a number of disciplines that fall under subdisciplines that fall under the umbrella of psychology. So as a clinical psychologist, it means that it's application where there's need for depression, anxiety, whatever. So it can be in a hospital setting. People are receiving inpatient treatment. Clinical psychologists will also do outpatient treatment as well.
It means we open a clinic, Grim. We operate out
Yeah,
of a clinic, a clinical. We see patients, though.
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh, Tell me about the youth pastoring, not the traumatic incident part, but like that's the field out there in the field. Whoa, 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 whoa. Let's get back. Let me rewind to Thunder Bay one more time. Were you at all
Sure.
involved with the paintball and or airsofting that occurred at the location, and what can you tell me about that? Because I never, of all the videos that came out, there's not one of that, nor video testimony from the participants about how great it was. So, what do you have for
Ah,
me about that at all?
so that was very much inspired by you, and like we'd gone to Paintball Mountain a number of times with our kids. And so when we were talking about the conference, I said, well, we have to do, paintball for Jesus, or else what are we doing?
Or else, what
So
are we
that there was a
exactly,
lot of
sir?
skepticism around it. There were people who were like, I don't know about this. And the truth is, we sold out of the paintball before we sold out the other tickets, and they were gone like that. Everyone who signed up first signed up for that, except for maybe two or three people. So it was very popular.
And
And yeah, why there wasn't pictures and videos? I'm sorry, that is a missed opportunity.
that's all right. I heard like some popular figure took a couple to the head, and that was important. Um, how did you guys actually what play did actually how was the play arranged, and what's the difference between paintball and airsoft?
So airsoft originated in Japan, actually, and it was because I guess their rules around firearms are different, so you weren't allowed to do paintball there. Um, and airsoft being almost like a BB guns, only much more high powered. Uh, it's just cheaper for ammunition and
Mm,
a lot less to carry around. You can do CO2, but you can also have electric guns, and you tend to get more range on the airsoft guns as well. So
I
that's why
see.
we were looking at that at
Mm.
first, but it got changed to paintball because I think like 2 or 3 weeks before the event, the place that was hosting it, they were looking at maybe getting some more airsoft guns for us. And there's a law being passed that essentially would outlaw airsoft guns in
In
Canada.
Canada? No,
So,
not Canada.
yeah, I know.
That looks a
Who would
little
have thought it?
violent there, eh? We don't let the citizens have those.
Well, we have a funny thing where airsoft only exists because of a loophole in legislation about feet per second for something ballistic. And the issue is you can't actually have airsoft rifles that are too slow. So my son's looked at some in the States and we can't get them unless they're over 300 feet per second. So we're just wacky here. We're weird. Nothing makes sense, Chris.
In this context, it's properly phrased as we can't use American airsoft because it comes out too slow. But all right, all right. Ah, now so you've done both. You faced the youth. You're in the field, or you were in the field with that, as far as I'm concerned, because like I wouldn't hesitate to call Generation X the lost generation if we can play with what the word lost means. And so to avoid that in the future, like the the trenches is youth pastoring, or worse than pastoring, youth counseling, because there's no Jesus in that. All right, there's, at least when you're youth pastoring, there's the pretext that there's somebody around here for Jesus. Counseling is just I'm trying to get through this and I don't know. So
Yeah.
that's the trenches to me, and so thank you for your service in them, at least back then. Can you tell us what are they like today? Am I off on the device problem? Would paintball be recommended as from even first professionally, and if not professionally, then personally?
Oh, hugely, and yes, professionally as well. Uh, the screens are terrible, and it's been interesting because I still end up working with youth quite a bit. I'm because there's just so few mental health workers. I work across lifespan, and it's been wild to me when because somebody comes in with an anxiety disorder or something, you want to teach them how to ground themselves so they're not freaking out when you're talking about things and dissociating. You want to give them some agency over their emotions, being able to calm down. And regularly, I have teenagers who they don't know how to tighten, like if you're doing progressive muscle relaxation, they don't know how to tighten muscles in their arms. They're just like, I don't know how do you tighten those muscles, and how do I tighten my calves? They don't know how to do it because they're so um, disconnected from their bodies. And with the pandemic, it made it even worse. This was last June. The kids hadn't played softball for 2 years. First game of the year, my son's out there, and I recognize the kids from 2 years earlier, 3 years earlier. And first kid gets up to home plate, pitch is coming from this direction. The kid gets up to the plate and puts the bat over this shoulder, which I'm going to swing that way. The coach comes out, has to move around. So I thought, well, maybe it's a kid with some delays or something. Next kid comes out, stands on home plate, and it has to be directed to get off the plate, off to the side, because like the pitch is going to come over the plate. So I think that like four of the first six kids didn't even know how to stand for the pitch, and these were neurotypical kids that I recognized from a few years ago and thought, wow. So for 2.5 years with the pandemic, you must have just been in front of screens all the time. Like maybe you didn't even want to leave the house and just forgot some of these things. But from a clinical context, where do you feel your emotions? You feel them in your body. And if you are so dissociated that you can't locate where things are, then you're going to be lost in why you're reacting a certain way. You're going to have almost no agency at all over your 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 feelings and being able to upregulate or downregulate. And so some of the most effective interventions in northern communities, because I go to two fly-in only indigenous communities. They have like an ice road for like 5 months of the year,
All right,
but other than that, you
pause.
just fly.
I'm pausing you.
Sure.
This
Mhm.
embodiment issue with the children's. Um, why did I jump in? You're such an asshole now.
It's all
Oh
good.
no 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 no! It wasn't the embodiment issue. It was that you said the keyword agency twice, and I wanted
Yeah.
to stop you and at least get your definition of agency if you're going to be using it like that, because for us it's a
Yeah.
slogan.
Sure.
Hold on. Remember, embody.
I,
There is no agency. We want what's best for you. So for you to say it, I need you to unpack it for us. Is the thing.
totally understood. Uh, Agency, I mean, a sense that you're able to act in the world, that you're not just somebody where everything is happening to you, but you can participate and um, participate with what's happening around you, with your relationships, with your body, with your emotions. You get to dictate some of how you respond and what you may do, um, rather than being someone where you just things happen to you and you get blown to and fro. And the truth is, right, we do have things that happen just to us, but we get to have a say in it. And if you're going to step into the world and not feel like running away or hiding, you need some kind of agency. And one place to start that is with I can control. If I'm feeling anxious or worried, I can at least calm my body down. Or if I'm disconnecting from my body, I know a way back to it. Um, So very small ways of building agency in that sense. But that's what I mean when I use that word. Yeah.
Good, good. It your explanation it sounded to me the same as the not knowing how to flex a muscle, and
Yeah.
you're a lot like you can do this in your relationships as opposed to you can do this with your arm. So that's a
Yeah.
good use, and I approve this message. Now, as I recall,
So
I in
I'll
go ahead.
I just want to finish the thought about embodiedness. So the some of the most effective interventions in these northern communities, we have uh, usually a mix of some older people and some younger people that run something called a Choose Life program. And with the programs, it's mostly about getting the kids out doing things. Um, like, some of it's playing sports, but some of it's doing things like fishing and trapping. So, the one community, Sachico, I remember I thought it was so cool. Uh, one of the mornings coming in and finding out that the kids had woken up at like 6:30 in the morning to go out and check the trap line. And then, they check it, they bring in rabbits or whatever, then they learn how to skin the rabbits. And the kids who are engaged in those programs, I mean, they just do so much better. Right? You're learning to navigate your environment. You're learning about the animals that live around you. You're learning skills. You can say, I didn't know how to do a trap before. Now I know how to set up a trap line. I didn't know how to clean a fish. Now I know how to clean a fish. And all of those things are incredibly valuable if you're then wanting to help a kid who's struggling in school. They have the experience of learning how to do things and of somebody caring about them and having a relationship where uh, you're better off for having engaged somebody who will take the time with you, where maybe you're fumbling at first, but they'll stick with you until you're able to do that. And then, pass on those skills to someone else. And, and so that's, another way I see that embodiedness. And I find it strange when psychologists or counselors are trying to do talk therapy with kids. I think you have a program like this, that's going to go a lot further. And it's true for adults too. So paintball for Jesus, I'm fully on board, fully on board, Grizz.
When you were discussing the gutting of a fish, uh, the visualizations I experienced, I could describe as uh, since you were talking about children, I couldn't say but like an intimacy with nature,
Mm-hmm.
um, and that's part of being digitized. We can call it. You don't.
Yeah.
That's denied to you, and that education is not only of like your own sense of self, but literally like you and like fingers in the dirt is not um, colloquial nonsense for no reason. It's actually one of the most important things, and we're losing it if it's not. For my generation, we got Nintendo.
Yeah.
How could you beat Nintendo? I mean, and how could these kids beat whatever it is that's got them? Because I'm sure something's got them. Um,
Yeah. But it can be scary if there's nobody to help you learn how to do those things either. Like you
widows
have
and
no idea how to
orphans.
fish or do those things. Yeah,
Widows and
exactly.
orphans.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people, and I don't even really like the word client. Um, but it's a word we use, I guess. Yeah, I often think like this person, they would be better off with a friend or a dad or somebody to fill that space.
that's how I've always
You can't
derogatively
replace that.
considered those who do like about the derogatory framing of the work is that
Mhm.
like shrinks are for folks that can't is for people who have to pay for friends.
Mhm. Mm.
But I mean,
Yeah.
I did just tell a cop that I don't have friends. I'm an internet person, so it's not. I'm allowed to be derogatory about it if it self-identifies, right? That's how this game is played. So, but what's it like down in the actual trenches? I mean, okay, well, no, because I wanted to talk a second about what do you mean indigenous? What's that for you Canadian folks? Your
Mm.
particulars, if you need to stay particular on it. But what indigenous is?
Um, in our region, mix of people from sort of Ojibwe and Cree background, and Ojibwe is the language that's mostly spoken in the region, um, and which is very different than Indigenous people in Southern Ontario, British Columbia, or on the plains. So it's mostly Ojibwe, Cree, with Ojibwe being the language that's spoken.
So
Um,
indigenous, it
but he
means
is
the people that lived there before the white folk came and took everything over.
yes, yes, that would be a
And
definition.
you work with two particular tribes.
Two communities, yes.
They don't do
So
tribes.
there's about no, they don't. The history is fascinating with the different communities. Um, some communities are there due to conflict with other communities, and moved 40 or 50 kilometers down the road. Um, there's about there's 34 of them in my region, Northern Ontario. So we go all the way up to like Hudson Bay. But each community is quite different, quite unique. Um,
You had the you said there's the Choose Life program up there that you're familiar
yes,
with. The
yeah. Through
the name of
sorry, go ahead.
that makes me think that whatever those communities are, they're suffering the same as you described Thunder Bay with the deterioration of their centers, whatever their centers used to be. Is that
Yes, very much so. I think Northern Ontario. I think it has the highest suicide rate in the world. I think that was a while ago. I heard that. If not, it's certainly up there. So it's we're seeing things there that you don't see anywhere else. Like we don't have research on 10-year-olds committing suicide, but it happens in these communities. So it's yeah, unique troubles in these communities, very unique troubles, but troubles that are starting to manifest elsewhere. The same struggles that are in those communities, I'm seeing them in Dryden, Thunder Bay, Kenora, maybe not as intensely, but they're there. And at the same time, what I see are incredible people in these communities as well. A lot of what is holding these communities together, it's mostly grandmothers that are available, they're on the ball, they have wisdom, and they're trusted. And there's certainly some men like that as well, but it's a lot of grandmothers. So when you talk about the shadow matriarchy and
you've
about
seen it?
masculine and
You've
feminine,
seen
it's
it?
like I
Yeah.
see it, I see it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Um,
And I'm so grateful for those grandmas, man.
that
The
you that
kokums is what they call them.
that you bring them up makes me the other pressing problem, aside from like, can we do anything for the youth that will save us all? um, is the we call it a silver tsunami, and I think the next wave is going to be a childless one. But we're
Mhm.
getting to where the boomers are aging into like dying alone and deteriorating houses with getting food delivered and on government programs that get the food delivered, but like the only people they see are the ones that are paid for. And especially in your, like, am I wrong in saying that your position might be the one of the ones that is called upon to deliver the opportunity of the patient to get a maid? Is that a thing
That's
you're going to
where
have to face?
I'm terrified that might be the case. Yeah,
To be clear for
it's
everybody, get a maid in this case means medical assistance in dying because the Canadian government is adorable. And so when I say he might be, ask him if he might be faced with it, he might have to be the person that asks the patient if that's what they want, right? So,
yes. It will. We'll see how that goes. Thankfully, there's some pushback, and there's quite a bit of pushback from some of the psychiatrists and psychologists in Thunder Bay, who, they just know how foolish this whole endeavor is and how dangerous it is. So we'll see what happens, but
how
that's
many
that's
of them
something
know how
I'm
satanic it is,
alarmed.
would you say? And would you say, am
You
I
know,
presuming, or do you agree with that? And how many people do you think also see that it's that bad?
hmm, that's a great question.
You
I mean,
might
for
not
me,
be.
I do see it as satanic.
Okay, I don't know if you were able to answer it given you're
I do.
employed and stuff. So.
No, no, I feel free enough to say it. No, I do. Um, I mean, it's one thing when somebody's end of life suffering, where I mean you could, and I mean I believe that life is sacred, so I have a lot of feelings about all of that and a lot of thoughts. But it's a whole other level when we're talking about uh, people who are depressed, anxious. I remember when I first moved to this region, and I was working at the health authority, and my supervisor, my first meeting with him, I said like, "You're the first two people I've talked to have talked about being suicidal, and how normal is this?" And he laughed and he said, um, "Pretty much everybody you talk to is going to have attempted, know somebody who attempted or completed or has thought about it." So he was like, "Get ready. You're going to hear a lot of this." And sure enough, he was right. Not that not that everybody is, but the vast majority of people I talk to, they're thinking about it from time to time. And when they get through those dark periods, they're not. But when you make something like that readily available, I do think that there are people who jump on it. And the laws in Ontario, especially, disturb me because we actually don't have a nailed down age of consent for medical intervention in our province.
How
Most
convenient.
places you say it's like 14, 15, 16, not here. So it's up to the judgment of the therapist whether the person can give consent. So I am just envisioning unless they're careful about this, which they don't seem to be so far. You could conceivably have a 12 or 13-year-old saying, "Look, this is what I want to do," and they don't want their parents to know, and that's it's a chilling thought.
That's like
Um,
worst case scenario
so
because that can happen to you.
yeah,
That you then have to navigate that moral minefield, right?
yes,
Is there other ways than like in what ways is that terrifying? From
I think life is good. I think life is good, and um,
oh,
being pressed where somebody wants to get it done, you say no. I mean, all they have to do is just contact the college and make a complaint about you. And, what does the college do? Especially because, psychology for a very long time, I think because of status, has wanted to get itself embedded into the medical world as much as possible, right?
mhm.
And, the medical system, there are a lot of things about it I'm very grateful for, but the way that the medical system views a person um, is it's
A
as an
special
organism, right?
special
It's
thing. It's a special
yeah,
special thing. Yes, yes. There's probably like a string of codes of diagnoses that will or will not allow you to pressure your that that's serious business. I wanted
Yeah.
to go into something. Man, things are slippery today. Um,
Yeah, you're leaving no interesting topic unturned, rug
well,
unturned that way.
let's
This is
bore
good
them a
though.
little bit. Do you have anything
No,
for
no,
me?
one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you was yeah, I hear your tweets, I hear you in conversation with people, and all I walk away with the thought this is somebody who sees the world differently than I do and is able to communicate in a way that
Sorry, I was on my
I
cord.
very much oh somebody who communicates in a way that I guess feels sort of enchanted. And I'm very curious about you and how you perceive the world and how you've come to perceive the world the way that you do, because it's not only is it different, and I find it to be stimulating. Um, it's also very helpful and needed in a world where I think that I'm sure you're familiar with like some of Ian McGilchrist's work.
Hmm.
It's everything so left brain and dead. And I don't think I've ever walked away from a conversation that I've heard you feeling like it's delving into that or crossing into that at all. And I know some of your story. Um, and I imagine there are experiences or thinkers or I mean, I don't know, something that's kept you from being sucked into the left brain world that we live in, that is dead and atomized.
Hmm.
I don't know if I'm making sense, but I'm
No, no, no.
reaching, grasping.
You do. It's interesting because, like, there's this weird vibe I get with McGilchrist that, like, the fact that maybe I think that it's because the fact the book is like 1,000 pages or whatever. That when you say McGilchrist left brain, right brain stuff, it's like a. Pfft. However, given Vervaeke's work or paper with what's his name, I think we might be able to say autistic and psychotic and then just offend everybody, but still be talking about the same thing. Because
Yeah,
psychotic, psych with psychotic, where psych is spirit, is probably kind of accurate, whatever otic means. I can see spirit, psychotic. Whoa, is that what that means? Sorry. Um, Regarding my story, like yesterday was I had a thing where I was nearly in jailing myself because I wouldn't sign a document, and in that moment, this caused some reflection upon what archetypal Hoodithunkets or that I resonate with. It where's that from? And it's and I tell people I'm a recovering Carlinist because I saw at whatever age I saw George Carlin say that, like, regarding politics, that I don't have a dog in this fight. Like, I'm just watching the show because it's so ridiculous that all you can do is laugh. And, and so that was like my flavor of nihilism was like, this is just the show. This is the ride, the show, and then I recognized that there was really strong resonance with, like, Stranger in a Strange Land, even just the title of the book. But I said at some point that, like, the reason I knew I could talk to Vervaeke was because he said the word grok. It's like that powerful of a thing, and it's like a book of a kid who grew up on Mars and then gets brought to Earth because of his property rights. Um, and to grok means to understand something. Like, I don't know if it's a superpower or just something everybody can do, and he figured it out because of the way he grew up. But to grok is to know something so well you can decide it's not there. Uh, Just because you understand it so deeply and fully. Like, I don't know exactly, but it's like to know is a thing, and then the grok is like the deeper and fuller level. But did that dodge your question?
Oh, I thought that was very helpful. Right? If I'm following you, what you're saying is um, the your experience with nihilism means that you're able to you know it so well that you can see it when it pops up, and you can operate in a way where it's it doesn't come out in how you speak or how you act, um, but you sense it when it comes up with other people, the pathways that lead to it,
Mm.
and so you live in the other world. Would that be a fair summary? Am I following you?
I live N in N other world. I wouldn't. I don't know if it's the other one. And I wouldn't. I won't take it as unfair. Um, ah. I was gonna ask. You don't develop mentally when the child to mother. I mean, I'm sure there is like through breastfeeding. There's whatever. But like, at what brain development age does the child developing as a self do the maternal bonding?
When does the bond start with the mother
Yeah,
and the child?
like the way Peterson says that like kids that don't get enough rough housing between 2 and 4 don't learn their
Yeah,
body limits that way. Like the pair bonding part, is that the same
yeah.
age for that?
The pair bonding with the mother starts even sooner. You know what? Something fascinating is that the the distance that a newborn baby is able to see is approximately the distance between mother's space and her breast.
Mm.
So when the child is breastfeeding, they can they can see the mother, and obviously that's not accidental, right? And learning, mothers. It's where it's so sad that you have mothers that live so far apart from their own mothers. There is a feel um, that you develop as a mother, hopefully, in being able to soothe your child, being able to understand the different types of cries that they
Mm.
have, because there's different pitch, timbre, all of that, and that kind of responsiveness from a mother early on, it allows you to then go out much more easily with, say, a dad to do that rough housing. The idea of having a secure base. You get that secure base with your mom, then your dad can say, let's wrestle, let's throw each other around, let's go out and explore. But you don't have that, the anxiety, um, experience of not being soothed when you're that young. I believe that it sets your nervous system to be much more sensitive and make you more prone to anxiety, which I think it's awful that you have mother and child separated really early on in a lot of cases, because that secure base is important for that next step with the rough housing with dad.
See, I think what happened was that my care mostly fell to my aunt, my mother's sister, from the age of 3 up for a while during some really important stuff. And then
Mm-hmm.
like when I was 8, whatever between her and her mother happened, and she left. So that like I think losing that connection at 8 and not having it with my actual mother at all because she's off in the Air Force is part of why I felt so other to like everybody at school, and then like the otherness like resonates when books about aliens coming to Earth because
Mm-hmm.
and then so there's the psychological insight for this episode.
How did you sense it that you were alien or other? Like what clued you into it? What was it that made you aware of that?
Well, the lack of father, I think, is pretty
Okay.
kicks in pretty young. You recognize that? That like
Mm.
I don't know anymore. I mean, who knows what they're going through now? It's probably
Yeah.
worse now that like single parents and whatnot has been normalized. But at the time, it was like what I don't have that everybody else talks about is you're like,
Mm.
okay, I'm different, and then like you try and stretch different into special as best you can, and it plays out the way it does.
Mm. And so you became aware of that, and then you've come around in your own story where you want there to be paintball for Jesus. People can go other
Mm,
routes, right? Where they become just closed off, just about themselves. Everything can burn. Um, but you want to see kids get out there and
mm.
live and be alive and be embodied and connect. Uh, how did you make that turn, or was that always something in you?
Mm, that turn. It was fine. Ah, it was fine that everything was fine, and I couldn't find my place in it.
Mm.
That's no big deal. Um, and I think that's why everything fell apart. Is because for my generation, everything was fine. Like
Mm.
it looked like they didn't need us to keep everything running at all. Like we didn't see the corruption seeping into the government, or we just took the bitter pill and realized it was corrupted already,
Yeah.
and always had been. And we were just getting better at seeing things as the public got more video eyes
Mhm.
and more ability to talk to each other. Um, there, I was under the impression that psychedelics might help with the uh, hating waking up here.
Mhm.
I won't say it because like I've come to understand them as like distinct between suicidal ideation and suicidal fantasization.
Mhm.
Um, and like there's the like being here is unbearable, and then there's like visualizing ways to end yourself.
Mhm.
And for me, ideation and it should really go under the second category. Just
Mhm.
not wanting to be here is like, and you know, like, I don't, you know, it's whatever. But I still had that, despite that I had taken it off the table at the apocalypse of 2012 as an actual option for myself.
Mhm.
Um, like the according to the Mayan calendar, the next cycle was supposed to start, not the world was supposed to end. Cycle calendars are round,
Oh,
but
that's right.
it was supposed to do that. And whether or not anything happened in the world, if I hadn't like consummated uh, the suicide, then I wasn't allowed to. Because I had been thinking about it for X number of years up until 2012, and math, that's the quarter of a century. So off the
Mhm.
table officially, but still the hating being here. And my life was video games and what I had to do in the outside world to maintain my access to the digital reprieve of this
Mhm.
unattractive fleshy meat sack failure in life. so
Oh,
so I'm seeking psychedelics as an option thanks to what Rogan's telling his cubicle rats and the other
mhm.
endorsements. And the opportunity opens for me to pursue that, and I do. And in the pursuit of that, I'm exposed to, hey, dude, have you tried fasting? In the form of Baba
Mhm.
Wanyama, um, perhaps a grifter, but at least a guy who apparently runs a kids' charity in Africa, who talks about if you live clean, good things happen. And
Mhm.
on the same day, I was also exposed to conspiracy truther stuff about Hollywood pedos,
Yep.
and that the follow up of the one that first occurred was local to me, where I was in Portland at the time pursuing the hallucinogenic solution. And the like, if they're actually hurting kids, that I didn't want to be here meant that like earn your death, do some good.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
that turned into my truthering YouTube part, which there's tiny remnants, but there's way more just sitting there private. Would you like to have access? I just put it behind the paywall. Thanks. And and but I ended up having to leave because my grandma. And at the
Mhm.
time where I was going, this beautiful place, Oklahoma, had not yet gone medical. Like the
Mhm.
pretext of me being in Portland was to get a job in the industry and learn the plant, so that when this place went medical, if I was here, I would have like I could be part of a like get in early on a boom industry and actually make something of my life. But instead, my grandma, I do a truther YouTuber thing, and then my grandma gets sick, and so I come here and I know I don't have, and and so I'm trying. Like for me, it was over. It's like way too late. I mean, this is before COVID hit, but it's like things are so bad. There's no future to get excited about because of the whole. Um, Everybody's gonna call on their devices, and our other option is what? Go Amish, and so that nihilism just from that is already there. And then there's this like what they're actually like the horrible things and the level of tech I don't even know about with the cloning because I went deep, and
Mhm.
so um, it was already too late. But like, what good can you do? Or like, what if it's not too late?
Mhm.
And the fact that I was being sent, to the extent that spirit's working through my life at all, I was being sent back to a place I know of as having like 40 churches. And I had gotten in my pursuit of the hallucinogenic poisoning, I had been exposed to an opportunity because I was the one with the car to go play paintball. And I had experienced that for the first time.
Mhm.
And the experience of running while being shot at, even if it's by balls of paint, was the closest to some of the delicious synthetic engineered high uh, that I get from playing the right game.
Mhm.
Overwatch. Um, and so that, that I know the churches are old and dying, and there's a lot of them. I know the kids need to get out of the screen, and my personal experience tells me the best chance you have of getting them out off of that drug is the thrill of the paintball experience. The like you're running and shooting and being shot at for an objective. Your team could lose. and that since I grew up here in this Midwestern place, where like we're technically Oklahoma, and all that's been glamorized by Hollywood and such is in Friday Night Lights is the Texas high school football. But like that level of it's been, you guys have all been shown that level of local enthusiasm for like people and their children competing in things. And so I put the family love of supporting the competition into like the paintball for Jesus has to be competitive, so that you get that the family, so the community supporting, and then it might as well be between churches, and then like, well, how it's expensive. How are you going to pay for it? Well, the churches will pay for it, but only if they have to sponsor a team of 6 for the church to participate, and you can do like 3 churches come together to do one team of 6, but like they pay for one team to compete, and they sponsor that team, all the gear, the paintballs, whatever they need, and then you got the churches competing together, the family competing for that, and then the kids in their bodies. And for me, I get semi-combat trained young men who love Jesus for when like the mask comes off and people start seeing how bad things really are.
Mm.
And so it's the perfect solution, and I decide that like if there's any good I can do in the world helping manifest that, that's the most. That's the best good I can do. So became a holy quest as soon as I spoke that into existence in front of Paul Vanderklay. So now it's my holy quest.
I like the quest. I like it a lot, and uh, I've seen the benefit, and I mean I get to see it with my own kids getting to do. I know it's not quite paintball with the airsoft, but it's similar enough, and yeah, that thrill. I see it with my kids. It's similar to the thrill I remember when you'd be like 4 or 5 years old and you chase them, and they have that mix of terror and laughter at the same time. I get to
It's
see that now, with my
it's like
12 and
so
16
much
year
fun
old
that there's
boys.
this much on the line.
Yeah.
It's so much fun there's this much on the line. Um, Second wave, after a generation of this, I don't know, maybe 3 years, maybe 1 year of competition, maybe 3. Um, the the senior team folk get engaged in Saint Sartori's tradesman program, where we bring back like the important things, like being an electrician, a plumber, whatever,
Yeah.
uh, back in the churches too. The church, I don't know. It's not like I think the churches can support everything, except I think that the whole tithing system is the best collection hat that has been presently formed for capturing the love of the people for their community. And so that makes the churches one of the best people to sponsor this sort of the health of the community through, if it starts with paintball or starts with the tradesman program. The return to the church, the remystification, God's actually here, should also come with the tools we're going to need to rebuild what we've lost over the last 40 years. I think.
Yes.
I have a patron.
Not. Oh, I wish I didn't have to go right now, Grim. I actually have
You
an
do.
appointment I got to go to.
I'm going to pretend
Um,
it's another of your big Vanderklay marriage crisis series, guys. We're going to put a link to that right here. Like, throw some hot sauce on the next one, bro. I'll check it out. Thanks for being here. I'm glad you did this. Have a wonderful
Thank you.
evening.
You too.
All
Take
right.
care, Chris.
Bye.